everybody, it's Christina from Hairy Tales in my second video of Ask Me Anything. The next question I've been getting a lot of is with regards to getting your dog enough exercise during the current circumstances of COVID-19. Unfortunately, here in Toronto, all of our off-leash dog parks have been closed, as well as many other green spaces and trails. However, there are some that are still open, but you do need to be careful as the ones that are closed are pretty actively surveyed by bylaw and police. There are other ways to exercise your dog other than getting them off leash with their friends at the off-leash park. I know it's going to be a little bit more work on your part, but it can be done. And there are some really fun ways of getting it done. One of the things I have noticed recently, and I've gotten a lot of calls for as well, is dogs are starting to get frustrated due to their lack of energy output, and they're taking out their frustrations in ways of destructive chewing, and some dogs even in aggression. So if you're noticing any changes in behavior with your dog, you might want to ask yourself whether they're getting enough exercise and whether or not their entire exercise regime has been changed due to our current circumstances. So with no further ado, I will start with my tips on getting your dog enough exercise during these difficult circumstances. So the first thing you can do to get your dog a little bit more exercise while on leash doing a regular street walk is get them a backpack and start filling that backpack with a little bit of weight, accumulating that weight every day. So backpacks are still available. Pet stores are still considered an essential service. However, most places are shipping or pickup only. But you can definitely find these things still on Amazon as well, and they are also doing just a couple day service with Prime. So if you can get your dog fitted with a backpack, what you do is you put it on your dog and you start with nothing in it. And you do a good walk with your dog, probably a 45-minute walk, depending on the size and energy level of your dog. And every day you would start adding a little bit of weight inside, just bit by bit. You don't want to do it all at once. Just like people, if dogs carry too much weight all at once, they're going to get sore. Best thing to do is get a water bottle on both sides and fill it with a little bit of water and increase that amount of water every time that you walk your dog. Make sure that you never allow your dog to carry more than 20% of their body weight when you've gotten to the higher point of weight in their backpack. Dogs should never really be carrying more than 20 to 30%, and the 30 percentile range is for dogs who are extremely active and used to doing this type of work on a daily basis. These dogs have worked up to this, so you really do want to take your time when adding weight and make sure that it's never going to be more than about 20% of your dog's body weight. And that will really help give your dog a job, and they will feel like they are working, which will also make them more focused on their walk. Tip number 2 for getting your dog enough exercise is going to be a little bit more work on your part, and that is jogging, biking, scootering, or rollerblading with your dog. I'm sure that many of you watching this are thinking to yourselves, well, my dog pulls really hard on the leash, and they're probably going to yank me over if I try any of these activities with them. Well, a lot of people are very surprised at how well their dogs who normally pull on their leash do when they take them on a faster paced run or jog or bike. It gives them a little bit more momentum. They don't have the time to be focused or smelling things on the ground or looking at things around them, and they become much more focused on you and where you are going. So give it a try. Start slow. If you're going to do jogging, there are leashes you can get out there that wrap around your waist so you can do it hands-free. Some of those leashes also have bungee cords on them, so they make it so that you have a little bit less jerkiness if you are a little bit more apart when you're starting to learn how to get into sync with each other with the movement and the running. Now, if you're going to choose to do any kind of wheeled devices, so whether it be biking, rollerblading, or kick scootering, I do suggest you try this in a calm and quiet environment. It is a more tricky thing to start to learn how to do with your dog. You can definitely make sure that you wear lots of protective equipment. Wear your helmets, wrist pads, elbow pads, knee pads. It is possible that you will fall the first time that you try this. Most of the time, dogs are very sensitive to this, so if they feel that you've fallen and it was their fault, they're probably going to be a little bit more careful next time. But do make sure you have that proper protective equipment. If you do fall when you first try this, don't give up. I can tell you personally, that when I first started doing this with my younger Shella, who's now a senior, the very first time we went rollerblading together in the cemetery, she took off after a squirrel and dragged me down, and I got pretty banged up. But I can tell you that since then, she is extremely careful with any wheeled device, and now we are able to rollerblade, bike, or scooter with her, and she pays very close attention to where the wheel is, and it's actually a really great way for her to get exercise. Places that are still open and available to do this safely, cemeteries are a great one. You are allowed in cemeteries with a dog on leash. There are also some trails that are still open to the public during this time. So if you can find those sweet spots near you in your neighborhood, that's where I would suggest you try this. Now, if your dog is just pulling a little bit too hard, you should give them a bit of a correction so that they know not to pull and that they need to run with you. So if they're pulling on the leash, you can do a quick pop of the leash and say no while you're going with them with the bike or the scooter, and ask them to heel. Another very important safety component to this whole thing is if you're doing a wheeled device, do not wrap the leash around your hand or your bike handle or your scooter handle. If you fall, it's really important that you're able to let go of that leash. So this is another reason why it's important to do it in a calm, quiet area away from roads in case this does happen. You wouldn't want your dog running into the street if you do have to let go of that leash in order to not fall on them. So there are a few safety things to keep in mind. Once you get going with this and your dog becomes used to it, it can be a really great activity that really helps get up that pent-up energy as well as it keeps them focused. So it's mentally stimulating for them as well. So another great tip for getting out your dog's pent-up energy is fetch. Now, fetch can be played outdoors or inside. Obviously, with those of you who have larger dogs, you're going to want to probably do this outside. Fortunately, the green spaces are still available to us, and we should be able to use those to do things such as fetch. While it isn't legal to have your dog off leash, for now we can take a long lunge lead, and hopefully the bylaw officers, if they come by, are going to be a little bit more lenient on this since we are all struggling to try to get this energy out of our dogs. Lunge leads can be purchased on Amazon. They're usually 15 to 20 feet long. You can also go to the hardware store and just buy a long rope. Either way, something that's 15 to 20 feet long is appropriate, and you can put a little knot on the end. So the purpose of this is when you're playing fetch with your dog, just because they don't have a good recall, it does not mean that you can't have them in an off-leash type setting with this long lunge lead. Because what can happen is if they start taking off or they're not coming back, you can step on that long lunge lead and reel them back in towards you. It's also another great way of teaching them to come because now you have a little bit more control to get them to come back to you when you call them. For those of you with smaller dogs, and you can still do this inside, when you want to make fetch a little bit more challenging, you can set up some little jumps for your dog to jump over when they go get the ball. This can also be a great way to get them tired out a lot faster, and they tend to enjoy it as well. Make sure that if you're doing this, that your dog is over the age of a year. Dogs who are younger than a year don't have all of their joints and bones formed completely, so you don't want to have them do too much jumping before they're fully developed. Another wonderful game that you can play with your dog inside or outside is tug of war. A lot of people have different ideas of if tug of war is good or bad. Tug of war, if your dog is respectful of giving that toy back when you ask for it without getting aggressive, is a wonderful game to play. If your dog is growling, there is a difference between aggressive, possessive growling and playful growling, so you will need to get to know your dog to figure out which one that is. But if your dog refuses to give back the toy when you play this game, that may be the time that you choose not to play tug of war with your dog. For all dogs that are respectful and who do give you back that toy, it's also a wonderful time to teach them give or leave it. You can also incorporate fetch as well while playing tug of war. This is something that our foster dog Nash absolutely loves. It's one of his favorite things to do every day. So when you are playing tug of war, they can pull on it as much as they want, but if you say give, they need to let go of it for you. So it is a good opportunity for you to teach them cooperation with you and teach them how to give the toy back, but always end with them getting the toy back, not with you taking the toy away. Tug of war is a really phenomenal way for your dog to get out frustrated or pent up energy. You can see it in higher energy dogs. They love playing. You just YouTube tug of war and dogs just get so into it. They absolutely love it. So that's another great one you can do inside or outside in any kind of space. Another great way of getting your dog's energy out is mental stimulation. So mental stimulation can come along with the chewing, but you can also get them all sorts of fun puzzles that are already made out there for dogs with treats in them. You can do fun games like Find It, where you have them sit and stay and you go and hide the treat somewhere in your house, and then now they have to use their nose to find it. Other fun games for mental stimulation, you can just start teaching them new tricks. Anything really, anything that's funny, party tricks. One of my dogs knows how to sit pretty. It's completely useless, but absolutely hilarious, and he loves to do it. So if you want to keep your dog's mind stimulated, that keeps them a little bit more tired. Keeping your dog's mind stimulated will also help them release some energy. Mental stimulation can keep your dog a little less energetic. And so if you want to do a bit of mental stimulation with them as well, that would be a really good way to keep your dog busy and keep their energy levels at bay. Finally, my last tip, which is probably one of the easiest ones that give you the least amount of effort, is giving your dog things to chew. Dogs take out their frustration in chewing, which is why you might notice when your dog is frustrated and hasn't had enough exercise, they start to do some destructive chewing of things in your home. If you're noticing this in your dog, go out and get them some things to chew. There are some great bones you can get at pet stores. You have to be careful of which ones you do buy though, because some of them aren't exactly safe. The more synthetic bones can be dangerous. One really great one that I love and recommend is the Pet Stages dogwood bone. This one is extremely safe. I've used it on my own dogs. The pieces that come off are safe because they're soft. They're not sharp and hard. Other things you can get are Kongs or stuffable rubber food toys. You can stuff the food or treats in there, freeze it, and then give it to your dog after. If you want to feed your dogs kibble in those, that will give them something to do. So you'd soak their kibble for 5 minutes, put it into the Kong or stuffable toy, freeze it, and give it to them once it's frozen. Another amazing treat you can give your dog is raw bones. Raw bones are probably one of the best things that you can give your dog for their teeth. Now, some dogs may not be able to eat raw food depending on if they have any health issues, so you do want to check and make sure that you don't have any issues with that. I see a holistic vet who highly recommends raw bones for all dogs with the exception of some dogs who may not be able to. For example, dogs who have pancreatitis cannot have specific bones like marrow bones because they're too high in fat. Unfortunately, my oldest girl, Shella, can no longer have marrow bones, so we're having to resort to a little bit more creative things like kangaroo tail, oxtail, chicken necks, turkey necks, and those kinds of chews. But these not only are going to help get your dog's frustration out, keeps them busy, but it also is a phenomenal thing for their teeth. Another thing that you can do, butchers are all still open. You can order these. Most butchers are fully aware of the need for dogs to have raw bones. Many of them have offcuts ready for you in the freezer. They're not expensive, and I would highly suggest you start doing that. You can also, if you think it's too dirty and you don't want to get that kind of stuff on the carpet, it will bleed a little bit. You can make sure that your dogs learn how to chew on an old sheet. And that would just take a little bit of consistency from you. Every time the bone rolls off the sheet, you would say no, put it back on the sheet, and say okay, and let them chew on it only when it's on the sheet. So a bit of supervision at first, but both of my dogs have learned that they have to chew their bones only on the sheet. They're not allowed to bring it anywhere else. They can't put it in my bed. They can't put it on the couch. So you can also teach them that they can only chew these things in one spot. Those are my tips on COVID-19, getting your dog's energy out. I hope you've enjoyed these tips. I hope you can put some of them to use. Keep the questions coming. Again, I'm answering them based on popularity. So the more of the same question I get, the more likely I am to do a video on it, but I will continue to do these video updates probably on a weekly basis for the next coming while. Look forward to hearing your questions in the future, and talk to you soon.